All right, everyone, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is our third webinar in our series talking about school counseling in charter schools. You can view the recordings for our previous two webinars on our website, the same place where you signed up for these trainings. And this one will be added there as well after we finish up today. Today's focus is on collaboration in our school counseling programs. So really, it requires a lot of collaboration to be successful in our school counseling work. There's really not someone that we don't collaborate with at some point, right? We have so many different stakeholders. We have our stakeholders in the building, so our students, our teachers, our administrators. We have a lot of stakeholders in the community, right? We have our parents and families. We have maybe industry and businesses. We have our school-based community groups, right? Like our school community council or PTAs, as well as those that we partner with when we do referrals, like mental health agencies. We have our school boards, just so many people that we collaborate with to make sure that we are really supporting students. So as school counselors, we do all of that collaboration in kind of different areas. And that's kind of how this presentation is structured, to talk about those different ways that we collaborate within all of the different kind of areas that we have in school counseling. So this first one is talking about how we really support the school improvement plan and school climate as we do collaboration. So really working with our feeder network to have that scope and sequence of a comprehensive K-12 program. We really want to make sure that we are being systemic in our approach to both to our collaborative classroom instruction and to everything that we do with our plans for college and career readiness and career literacy. And then really making sure that the school is a place that is welcoming, students want to be there, right? That piece of having that welcoming, safe, wonderful school climate is so important. And that really comes from collaboration with everyone in the building to make sure that happens, because as school counselors, we're uniquely trained to be able to kind of be aware of those situations and kind of have that lens of every student and what do we need for students and their families to feel welcome and safe in our buildings. So really, the other place that we do a lot of collaboration is in dropout prevention, right? So working with students, their families, others in the building that might be like a student advocate or mentor, really being on the same team and on the same page with what is happening with that student. And we really do need to make sure that we're including students and parents and teachers as we kind of work through our program. We're going to talk about the advisory committee a little bit more in just a minute, but that is one way that we get feedback about our program. We also do like our needs assessment, right? So we're doing a lot of things to try to get some information and some feedback on how we can improve our program. And I think a big piece of that is working with those stakeholders that we've collaborated with to say, okay, we've done this, what do you think, right? So really working towards kind of that unified approach and everyone working towards those same goals. All right, again, in that plan for college and career readiness, we are collaborating with students and their parents to kind of develop this plan, to talk through their options. And then this is a place where we don't start, but we continue that collaboration with post-secondary options, right? So helping students make those connections to a technical college, a community college, whatever training opportunity is next for them, right? So this is where our collaboration with USHE and other higher ed partners comes in to really make sure that students have correct information and that we're connecting them to the right people so that they can make that as smooth a transition from the K-12 system to higher ed as we do in any of the other grade levels, right? We have those meetings with other school counselors for transition, doing the same kind of thing to make sure students are able to be successful as we transition. We've talked about data a little bit, but
so your slides aren't switching. I don't know what slide you're on, but it's showing us collaboration still.
Yes, data projects and systemic assessment.
Yes, is that where you're at?
That is where I'm at.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, so making sure that we collect that data, analyze it, and then one of the big points of emphasis that Bethany and I have for this year is to share that with our stakeholders, right? So as we're working with them to talk about these issues, to make plans together, really important that we come back to them at the end to say, how did it go, right? So really including all of our stakeholders in that share out piece as well. Parents, your faculty and staff, even community members, making sure that they know that the work that they've kind of contributed on and collaborated with had some positive outcomes. So that's really important that we share that data and those outcomes with as many people as possible. Oh, now it's not going forward. Okay, so again, in the responsive services area of prevention, intervention, so important that we're doing collaboration, especially with our families and outside resources, so that we can get students the support they need before things kind of progress, right? And this really aligns in our school counseling program model in your review of Standard 6 and Standard 7. So Standard 6 is our systemic approach to dropout prevention with social emotional supports, right? So this is where we do a lot of collaboration with the other mental health professionals in the building, with those that maybe are in the community that we have a partnership with, to help students have success and really help them be connected to those community resources. And again, when we do that intervention, being aware of our limitations of what we can do in our role as a school counselor with our training, and those times when we need to refer to either community resources or other places in the community. So as I mentioned, that advisory committee is so important. It really is there to kind of assist us and give us some feedback about what we need to be doing, right? Really kind of going into our goals. Were we able to meet those goals? Do we need to maybe change our focus? And so important that this membership represents the school demographics. We talk about this when we work with students, that when we look at, AP and advanced courses, do those students represent what the school looks like as a whole? We really want to do that same with our advisory committee. Does that membership look like what our school does as a whole, to make sure that we are getting a representative idea about what's going on and how we need to either change or adjust our program? So that advisory committee includes students, parents and families, teachers, other school counselors, administrators, maybe school board members, other businesses or industry, other community partners. That membership can really be kind of as big as you want as far as kind of different places that these members will come from, but really focusing on getting a perspective from all of your stakeholders and using that information to really improve our program, really get that feedback and use it to help guide future activities. And we really want to have these advisory meetings at least twice a year, maybe in the spring the fall to kind of say, hey, here's what we're doing. And then again in the spring to say, here's how everything went, and kind of get some feedback and plans for next year. But however it works for you and your advisory committee to have those really important conversations and get that feedback. So we briefly mentioned this before with our responsive services, but so important that we are collaborating with those either in our school or in the community that we can refer students to. We can and should refer when a student's need is outside of our scope of our work or of our training. And we know that there are a lot of student needs out there. And as school counselors, we are focused on short-term counseling services. If this is something that the student is going to need long-term support, if it's looking like they might need therapy, anything like that is outside of our realm. And that's when we need to be collaborating with this student and their family to think through what options might work for them and to have resources to refer them to. So really making sure that we have those ideas already. This is where that kind of pre-work really comes in to build those relationships with your community providers or even those inside your school, to know what that referral process looks like, to know the steps so that you can help guide students and their families through this process. And then what your plan is to kind of continue that relationship. What type of information sharing is there going to be? Is this person going to report back to the student's progress, or are they only going to work with the student, right? So kind of having all of those conversations in advance is super important. Also super important is this principal counselor collaboration. Administration support is absolutely critical to a quality school counseling program. So important that the administration is collaborating and working together with the school counseling department. So we're all working towards the same goals. again, the more we're working together and going towards those same objectives, the easier it's going to be, the smarter we can work instead of harder. And when administrators see the value of a school counseling program, they're going to support it, right? So it takes a lot of work on our end as school counselors maybe to kind of encourage that and really show administrators what school counselors do. They may not have a great understanding depending on their background. So really letting them know what we do as school counselors, help them to understand our role, help them to see what those appropriate and inappropriate duties are, and just kind of going through all those different program elements that we have a ton of accountability in school counseling, and just really letting them know what those outcome pieces are. So again, sharing that data with principals so that they can see the school counseling program is having an impact on student outcomes. This is what that changes. And that's going to get a ton of buy-in from your administration if they can see that data piece. So they are another key stakeholder in that data sharing piece. And so we do have the template of the principal counselor annual agreement. This is really a tool to help you have this conversation, have some ideas in writing that you can refer back to. So everyone's on the same page and really clear about where we're going and how we're going to get there. So on this template, we talk about what the ratios are for each counselor, what other responsibilities they have. This is a great time to have, again, that conversation about appropriate and inappropriate duties. So no counselor should have the duty of building the master schedule. It should not list as a responsibility to coordinate and give and be in charge of AP testing. So really going through all of those things that are responsibilities to have maybe those difficult conversations that say, this really isn't an appropriate school counselor duty. What can we do with this responsibility to move it to someone else, to share that, whatever the case may be, just have that conversation so that as school counselors, we're doing our job and running our program and not doing those inappropriate duties. And we do have that section for your top goals and what you're going to be working towards. And it has that column of, is it aligned with the school improvement plan? Hopefully the answer is yes. So as we talked about before, really making sure that what we're doing in our school counseling program is aligned to what's going on in the school as a whole. So we're, again, all working towards the same things and that we have some data around that. So as counselors, we have our systemic assessment, we have the SOAR, so many other ways that we can kind of gather some data about our program that can then be used to support the school improvement plan goals and vice versa. Those data sources can help guide our program as well. Also on this template is the use of time. So 85% of a counselor's time needs to be in direct service with students, which means we are in the classroom, we're doing individual meetings, we're working with students directly, right? So really making sure that that use of time follows those guidelines. We do have the recommended distribution kind of based on level, where elementary is more heavy in the collaborative classroom instruction compared to plans for college and career readiness. And then that kind of switches when we get into high school, that more time is in the plan for college and career readiness and less time in collaborative classroom instruction. But really making sure that everything that's kind of part of the counselor's direct service is counseling focused, right? So having these conversations. Hopefully I'm going to stop sharing and just go to the template, and hopefully that will not cause any major drama in our recording. Here we go. I'm going to reshare. So we just talked through a lot of this, and apologies for scrolling, but just down here to really make sure that in the gaps and goals that we've identified something in our data. So we have data to support that there is a gap, and we have a goal that's going to address that gap. What is our plan to close that gap? And again, making sure we use a SMART goal, the same things that we teach to students when we're having them set goals, doing that same kind of format in our goals. And then again, that use of time. So 85% in direct services and only 15% or less in kind of managing the program, doing all of that indirect services and program support. So really important section, I think, is this time use section. It also references on here the board rule that says all counselors, K-12 approved program or not, need to be following this rule of 85% of time in direct services, as well as kind of who's going to be doing what and when. So that's on our kind of program management piece and with our review schedule. And then I just want to scroll down here, is that we have a section for the school counseling program vision statement and mission statement. I think this is another great place where we can do a lot of collaboration with stakeholders to get some feedback about what do they see the school counseling program doing? What do they see us to support students to be successful, and really getting that feedback from them and how we might partner with them to make all of this happen. So we don't talk a ton about school counseling program mission and vision statements, but they are really important for us to kind of guide our work and to always have in the back of our minds as we're making decisions, if we're planning interventions, we're doing our calendaring, to really say, where are we trying to go? Where do we want our students to end up? And how are we going to get there? And kind of always having that as kind of our guide as we make all of our plans throughout the year. So, you know, Bethany and I am going to put our contact information up here. So you can reach us via email. That's probably the easiest way. And then if we need to have a phone call, we are happy to do a follow-up call. But that is the end of our kind of formal training piece. Bethany, are there any questions or things we need to discuss in the chat?
Nope, nothing came up.
Perfect. Thanks everyone so much for joining us. I hope you have a wonderful day.